Everyone in that room expected Muhammad Ali to fight, not with his fist but with his words. A United States senator looked straight at him, cameras rolling, and said something no man is prepared to hear in public. "You betrayed America." The room held its breath. This was the moment they wanted. The explosion, the defiance, the famous Ali fire. But Ali didn't give them any of it. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even defend himself right away. He sat there in complete stillness. And in that silence, something unexpected happened. The accusation began to collapse, because what Muhammad Ali did next was more powerful than any punch he ever threw, and it left the entire room changed. The room expected a performance. That's what Muhammad Ali had given the world for years: bravado, poetry, fire, the loudest man in boxing, the sharpest tongue in sports. So when the senator finished speaking, people leaned forward, ready for anger, ready for defiance, ready for Ali to remind everyone who he was. But Ali didn't move. No tapping fingers, no clenched jaw, no flash of ego. He sat there still. And in that stillness, something uncomfortable began to happen. The senator's words hung in the air longer than intended. Without a reaction, they started to feel heavier, less powerful. Ali understood something most people never learn. Real strength doesn't rush to defend itself. Anyone can react. Anyone can shout back. But restraint? That takes control. In that moment, Ali wasn't proving he was strong. He was showing he didn't need to prove it at all. The strongest person in the room wasn't the one with the microphone, the title, or the accusation. It was the man who could sit quietly while being challenged and remain untouched by it. Because strength that needs to announce itself is usually trying to hide something. Ali didn't need volume. He didn't need dominance. He had certainty. And certainty doesn't tremble when tested. The accusation wasn't just political. It was personal. Betrayal is a word chosen carefully. It cuts deeper than insult. It challenges identity. The senator knew exactly what he was doing. He wasn't looking for an answer. He was looking for a reaction. Because anger would have made the story simple. Anger would have made Ali predictable. Anger would have justified the accusation. And Ali knew that. So he refused to give it. He didn't tighten his fists. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't rush to clear his name like a man on trial. Instead, he slowed everything down. Ali understood that anger is often a transaction. Someone provokes. You react. They gain control. But the moment you decline that exchange, the power shifts. The senator was ready for a fight. Ali offered calm. And suddenly, the accusation had nowhere to go. That's the secret most people never learn. You are not required to meet hostility with hostility. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to choose who deserves your emotional energy. Ali didn't suppress his anger. He mastered it. Because anger isn't strength. It's just emotion without direction. And in that room, Muhammad Ali showed that the most disciplined fighter is the one who knows when not to swing. When Ali finally spoke, he didn't sound defensive. That alone unsettled the room. Most people, when accused, rush to explain themselves. They stack reasons. They search for approval. Ali did none of that. He didn't say he was misunderstood. He didn't ask to be forgiven. He didn't try to soften his beliefs to make them easier to accept. He spoke as a man who had already made peace with his decision. That's the difference between opinion and conviction. Opinion changes when the room turns cold. Conviction stands even when the room turns hostile. Ali wasn't arguing politics. He was explaining conscience. And conscience doesn't take a vote. The senator had the authority of office, tradition, and national expectation. Ali had something quieter and far harder to shake. He knew why he had chosen his path. He had already counted the cost. That's why his words carried weight. Conviction doesn't sound loud because it doesn't need reinforcement. It doesn't perform. It doesn't chase agreement. Ali wasn't asking the room to follow him. He was showing them what it looks like when a man refuses to abandon himself. And in that moment, the accusation lost its edge. Because it's difficult to intimidate someone who has already decided who they are. By the time Muhammad Ali reached this moment, the room was no longer hunting for a reaction. It was listening. That shift didn't happen because Ali raised his voice or sharpened his words. It happened because he refused to lower himself to the level the confrontation demanded. Hostility feeds on friction. It needs resistance, defensiveness, ego. Ali gave it none of that. The senator had come prepared to dominate the exchange. Questions were framed like verdicts, statements disguised as challenges. The tone was sharp, deliberate, meant to corner a man into either submission or explosion. But Ali did something disarming. He remained respectful, not performative respect, not weakness, but a steady, unforced dignity that made the hostility feel out of place. He listened without interrupting. He answered without sarcasm. He acknowledged the concern without surrendering his position. That combination is rare and unsettling, because when someone attacks you and you refuse to attack back, the aggression has nowhere to land. It echoes. It exposes itself. As Ali spoke, the senator's posture changed. The sharpness softened. The confidence that comes from control began to slip. Dignity does that. It turns a confrontation into a mirror. Ali didn't embarrass his accuser. He didn't outsmart him. He didn't corner him with clever words. He let the contrast speak. On one side of the table, authority, accusation, pressure. On the other, calm, clarity, restraint. The audience felt it before they understood it. Something was wrong, not with Ali, but with the tone of the attack itself. The hostility suddenly felt unnecessary, heavy, out of proportion. That's the quiet power of dignity. It doesn't shout down its opponent. It elevates the space until hostility looks small by comparison. Ali wasn't trying to win the moment. He was protecting his humanity within it. And in doing so, he changed the emotional temperature of the room. People stopped waiting for the next verbal blow. They began paying attention to the meaning behind the words. Because dignity commands a different kind of respect, not the kind demanded by force, but the kind freely given when someone refuses to abandon their values under pressure. Ali's restraint didn't weaken his position. It strengthened it. The senator, sensing the shift, hesitated, not because he had lost authority, but because authority without moral footing suddenly felt hollow. That is what dignity does to hostility. It removes its urgency. It drains its drama. It forces everyone involved to confront a deeper question. Why are we fighting at all? In that moment, Ali wasn't just defending himself. He was redefining the terms of the exchange. No longer attacker and accused, but two men facing a truth that demanded more than volume and power. And the room, once tense, once eager for spectacle, began to understand something profound. That dignity, when held without compromise, can turn even the harshest confrontation into a moment of reckoning, not through dominance, not through humiliation, but through quiet, unshakable grace. There was a moment, brief, almost uncomfortable, when Muhammad Ali stopped speaking. No explanation followed. No defense rushed in to fill the space. Just silence. In a room built for debate, silence felt dangerous. Television doesn't like pose. Authority doesn't like uncertainty. Accusations don't like being left alone. But Ali let the quiet stretch. That silence wasn't hesitation. It was intention. Ali understood that words are powerful, but timing is power itself. And sometimes, the most commanding thing a person can do is stop talking. The pause forced everyone to sit with the accusation on its own, without reaction, without resistance, without drama, and stripped of conflict. The accusation began to feel exposed. Silence has a way of doing that. It removes the noise that makes harsh words sound justified. It removes the energy that turns confrontation into spectacle. What's left is meaning or the lack of it. The senator shifted in his seat, because silence reverse précieux. When you speak, you carry the burden of your words. When you stay silent, the burden moves back to the person who spoke last. Ali wasn't avoiding the moment. He was controlling it. In that quiet, the audience leaned in. Not because something was happening, but because something might. Silence invites reflection in a way arguments never do. Ali gave the room time to think, time to feel, time to notice the weight of what had been said. And in that space, emotions changed. The tension softened. The hunger for conflict faded. What remained was curiosity and respect. Ali eventually spoke again, but when he did, his words landed differently. Because silence prepares the ground. It clears away distraction. It sharpens attention. It makes truth harder to ignore. Ali knew that if he spoke too quickly, his words would be absorbed into the noise of confrontation. But by waiting, he made every sentence matter. That's the discipline most people never develop. We rush to fill silence because silence feels like weakness. Ali knew better. Silence isn't empty. It's full of control. And in that moment, Muhammad Ali showed that mastery isn't just knowing what to say. It's knowing when not to say anything at all. The room didn't erupt. It didn't applaud. It didn't argue. It listened. Because silence, when chosen deliberately, demands attention more powerfully than any raised voice ever could. By this point, the confrontation had lost its sharp edge. Not because the issue was resolved, but because Muhammad Ali refused to turn the moment into a contest of dominance. Most confrontations follow a familiar path. One person attacks. The other strikes back. The goal becomes victory, not truth. Ali chose a différent path. When he spoke again, his words were firm, but they carried no contempt. He corrected what needed correcting without exposing or embarrassing the man across from him. He defended his choices without belittling the authority challenging him. That restraint was intentional. Ali understood something deeper than debate. Humiliation creates enemies, not understanding. He could have dismantled the senator's argument piece by piece. He had the intelligence, the wit, the cultural weight to do it. A sharper tongue would have earned applause. A cutting response would have ended the exchange decisively. But Ali wasn't trying to win a moment. He was trying to preserve something far more important: his humanity and the humanity of the man questioning him. There is a difference between standing tall and standing over someone. Ali chose the former. He spoke about his beliefs without framing them as moral superiority. He spoke about his choices without framing others as immoral. He drew a clear line around his conscience without pushing anyone else into a corner. That approach disarmed the room, because when someone stands firm without cruelty, it forces a rare kind of reflection. It invites people to consider ideas rather than defend egos. The senator, who had entered the exchange with confidence, now faced a different kind of challenge. Not a threat to his authority, but a challenge to his assumptions. Ali wasn't attacking the man. He was speaking past the role the man represented. And that distinction mattered. By refusing to humiliate his accuser, Ali removed the emotional armor that people hide behind during conflict. Without ridicule to react against, the senator had to confront the substance of Ali's words. That's when control truly shifted. Respect has a strange effect in hostile spaces. It lowers defense. It slows reactions. It invites listening. Ali's tone made it impossible to dismiss him as reckless or defiant. There was nothing to caricature, nothing to provoke. Just a man explaining himself with clarity and calm. This is where many people fail. We think standing up for ourselves requires making someone else small. We believe strength demands dominance. Ali proved the opposite. You can defend your position without destroying someone else's dignity. You can speak your truth without stripping respect from others. You can be unmovable without being unkind. Ali left no wounded pride in that room, no public embarrassment, no verbal scars. What he left behind was far more unsettling, a moment of self-examination. The senator wasn't defeated. He was quiet. And silence born from reflection is far more powerful than silence born from humiliation. Ali understood that how you stand matters as much as what you stand for. Victory that costs your humanity isn't victory at all. In that moment, Muhammad Ali showed a form of courage, rarely celebrated the courage to be firm without being cruel. And that may be the hardest kind of strength to master. By the time the exchange ended, nothing dramatic had happened. No shouting match, no viral outburst, no clear winner declared by volume or force. And yet, everyone in that room knew they had witnessed something rare. Because legacy is not built in moments of applause. It is built in moments of pressure. Muhammad Ali had faced greater threats than words. He had faced fists, titles, losses, and public hatred. But this moment was different. This moment demanded restraint. There were no cheers waiting on the other side of anger. No crowd to reward bravado. Only cameras, silence, and judgment. Ali understood that legacy is shaped by what you choose. When no one is pushing you toward the right decision, he could have protected his image with defiance. He could have defended his name with aggression. He could have reminded the world who he was with fire and dominance. Instead, he protected something quieter, his integrity. And integrity doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself over time. When Ali stood up to leave, he hadn't changed anyone's mind with force. He hadn't won the argument in the traditional sense. But the room was altered. The accusation no longer felt as certain. The hostility no longer felt justified. The audience no longer felt entertained by conflict. What they felt was respect, the kind that lingers. That is how legacy works. It doesn't arrive in a single moment of victory. It accumulates through choices repeated under pressure. Ali's greatest fights were never just in the ring. They were in rooms like this where dignity had to stand against authority, where conscience had to hold its ground without applause. Years later, people wouldn't remember the senator's words. They would remember Ali's composure. They would remember that he didn't bend, and he didn't break anyone else in the process. That is the difference between being famous and being remembered. Muhammad Ali left that room the same way he entered it, calm, certain, unchanged, but his legacy walked out with him. Because in a world obsessed with winning, he showed the power of remaining whole. And that may be the greatest lesson he ever taught. That day, Muhammad Ali didn't win an argument. He won something far more lasting. He showed that strength doesn't always look like dominance, that courage doesn't always raise its voice, and that dignity, when held under pressure, can change the direction of a room. Long after the accusations faded, long after the cameras stopped rolling, what remained was the example. Because anyone can fight when they're angry. Very few can stay grounded when they're challenged. Ali reminded us that the world isn't only changed by the loudest voices, sometimes it's changed by the calmest ones. And maybe the real question isn't what Muhammad Ali proved that day. It's what moments in our own lives are asking us to respond the same way.